Hi, everyone. I just want to welcome you to our first community practice of the new year. We are pleased to feature Sacramento City Unified School District as they discuss the pilot project, their pilot schoolyard forest project. Today, we're featuring three speakers: Chamberlain Segrest, the sustainability manager at Sacramento Unified School District; Nathaniel Browning, Director of Facilities Planning and Property Management at Sacramento City Unified School District; and Green Schoolyard America's very own Ayesha Ercelawn, who's our Senior Program Manager and Education Specialist. So I'm going to briefly read some bios just so you can learn a little bit more about our speakers. So the first voice you'll hear from after mine is Ayesha Ercelawn, who again serves as our Senior Program Manager and Education Specialist. Aisha leads our education-focused programming and ensures that Green Schoolyards America centers students and teachers in our work. She developed pre-K through 12 education resources for the Schoolyard Forest system and is the project lead for the Schoolyard Forest pilot in Sacramento, California, and collaborates with the Green Schoolyards America team on its many projects to bring schoolyard forests to scale. She's amazing. She's passionate about the potential of living schoolyards to both connect children with nature and to have a positive impact on the environment. Then you'll also hear from Chamberlain Segrest, who has over 15 years of experience working at the intersection of sustainability and education. She is currently the Environmental Sustainability Manager for Sacramento City Unified School District, where she works across departments to prepare the district for a rapidly changing climate, including work on green buildings, waste and composting, water conservation, and student engagement. You'll also hear from Nathaniel Browning, who has over 20 years of experience in public education, ranging from developing and operating a 6-acre urban farm from K through 16 students, after school programming focused on watershed restoration, state and local level policy development, planning and leadership, and most recently, the Director of Planning and Property Management for the Sacramento City Unified School District, where he oversees facilities planning and sustainability efforts. Nathaniel grew up on a large farm and ranch in eastern Washington before moving to California to earn his bachelor's degree in sociology and environmental science. So without further ado, I'm happy to turn it over to Ayesha Ercelawn to share her important work. Ayesha?
Okay, yeah. Thank you for having me on this series. It has been so fun to listen to the work happening around the rest of the country as well as internationally. So nice to be able to present a bit about what's happening in California. So I'm going to do a quick overview of what our pilot has looked like, and then I will turn it over to our district partners, Chamberlain and Nathaniel. So, just to back up a little bit for anybody new to our work, this pilot Schoolyard Forest is part of our larger California Schoolyard Forest system, which is an initiative to increase tree canopy. I know Mikaela mentioned that earlier. We are founding partners together with CAL FIRE, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, and with the California Department of Education and 10 Strands. And what are we calling schoolyard forests in California? Because I know we have been hearing from everybody around the country. We are defining it as a climate oasis. So trees planted in groves rather than in concrete cutouts as singly, with then having the benefit of also a healthier network of roots. It can then also provide stormwater infiltration, and it is a larger area to shelter students during extreme heat. We are talking about the diversity of trees being planted, not just a single one or two, or just one or two species, and that these being thoughtfully chosen to be climate adapted based on the best research currently available. And that these include the participation students right from the beginning in the design and thinking around it, the planting as well, and the future care of the forest, and that they include spaces that have outdoor learning and play possibilities. Let's see. There we go. Just another look at what I just talked about. Again, I know this is a repeat for some of you, but just in case anybody is new, this is a visual, again, showing a diversity of trees, a grove of trees, elements that include play and learning spaces as well. And our primary impetus for this work has been for providing shade with rising temperatures. I won't belabor this. I know a lot of us have been talking about this for quite a while, but it's quite dramatic, the difference between unshaded asphalt and shaded areas. We also have these larger goals of the schoolyard forest system, covering 30% of each school property, centering equity, and using school grounds as learning labs, and of course, building environmental and climate literacy. So these are our broader goals. So within that, at Green Schoolyards America, we have been doing 2 pilot schoolyard forests. One I will talk about at Parkway Elementary with Sacramento City, and my colleague Lauren will touch on the one in LAUSD and another part of this series. So the overarching goal for these pilots was very much to sort of figure out how to streamline, how to bring costs down so that this could be scaled up rather than just one school at a time. And also report our findings, provide a model to inspire others, figure out what are the challenges, what are ways to simplify things, what barriers we're running into, and be able to share that. Our funding for these pilots was provided again by CAL FIRE, the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. So, how we chose a Parkway Elementary School. This Sacramento is an area of very high temperatures during much of the school year. There's no shade in student recess areas. This is typical of many schools, right? Mostly asphalt and grass playing fields, again, a common scenario in much of the country. And also, very importantly, equity criteria. We used our tree canopy mapping data. This is a school that have 93% free and reduced lunch. District readiness is a reason it's in bold. That was huge. That Chamberlain and Nathaniel were ready to roll when we reached out. They wanted this for this district, and they were the ones who actually specifically pointed us to a school. So in case you're wondering how we chose a school, they knew the school had the need and was also ready to do this kind of project. And the reason I'm talking today is I was the project manager for this, which might have been in my bio anyway. So how did we choose where the forest would go at this school site? We met with Chamberlain and Nathaniel right at the beginning, and along with the principal and our landscape architect, Bay Tree Design, walked around, and it was pointed out to us that this area of asphalt was the primary area for recess. And here is their new play structure. And right behind it, the trees you're seeing are actually along the fence line, so they're not really student play area. But right behind it is a big grassy field, and we realized for reasons of visual supervision and having something that could be used every day during recess after school, to have it right there, have the sight lines, and have people be more willing to use the area. So that was a big reason for choosing this spot. And here's just another way of looking at it. This concept drawing by Bay Tree Design, our landscape architect. Here is that asphalt area I mentioned. You can see there is lots of grassy fields. Here's the play structure. So basically wrapping around that play structure, so with future shade for the play structure as well, future shade for the preschool play structure, which happened to be right there as well. And also put in some trees in this strip on the south-facing side, again, to provide a bit more shade to this. But here was the main grove of trees. I'll mostly show you some photos of that. Construction happened over the summer, kind of typical for schools, and was also a requirement from the district that this happen outside of the main school year. And some before and after pictures. From the top of the play structure, very fun to get up there. Already the trees have grown a lot more than that, but you get a sense. One thing that was really wonderful to be able to do is, you can see there's no fencing. It's contiguous with the existing older trees back there. So until these trees grow in, there can be a free flow and of course down in the future as well. So just some quick more info. We ended up planting 54 trees on this site. Diversity, as I mentioned earlier, is an important criteria, 13 different species, mostly natives to support wildlife habitat, but it included a mix of non-natives. Again, we're going for diversity. We don't know what's coming down the line in terms of tree health, disease, insects, so many things. You just have to have that diversity of species. They are climate adapted. Again, we worked with the California Tree Palette, which has recommended tree species for all sunset zones in California. This is on our website, and Lauren will drop in a link later for anybody unfamiliar with it. And it was also very important to get district approval on these species and run it all past them. And see what worked for them and make modifications accordingly. This actually shows it a little bit more grown, and we've got some natives right in front. Here's a wax myrtle, here is a sycamore, and then we have a couple of oaks, a lot of oaks, different oak species in the back, and trees of different heights. Tall, big tree canopy and some smaller, medium and smaller ones as well. We also made sure to have some community engagement, open houses, as a couple of those open houses for people to see the original ideas and designs and dot vote as we got more elements fine-tuned. We hosted a teacher PD before anything was planted to get teachers thinking about how can they start engaging students in design right from the beginning. How can they get everybody invested? How can the students can understand the urban heat island as well? What are some tools to do that? And really importantly, start fostering that internal school community. Like, who are going to be the champions taking this forward after Green Schoolyards America steps out, right? So an opportunity to start coming together over this. We also did dot voting with almost every classroom, which was really fun to see their excitement about what's coming and their thoughts. A few teachers shared designs, which we shared with our landscape architect. So including that student voice as well. And just so show you along with the trees, here's some other elements that were part of this Parkway Schoolyard Forest. There's play elements, these logs, which are play and seeding. Long-lasting tree species. In this area, we used redwood and eucalyptus as long-lasting species, a seeding circle, and a shed as near as the forest as worked. The shed is sort of in the background. I realize it's a bit hard to see. The forest is for outdoor classroom teaching materials, as well as tools such as watering cans and other things like that. Just another children. A lot of my pictures are TK. The school is TK through grade 6, but our photo permissions are from TK. So that's what you will see profiled here. But everybody is using the forest, and some topography was designed in for an extremely flat school. Sacramento is in the Central Valley, or maybe it's the Delta Sacramento Valley. Sorry. It's flat. So the children have been really loving what feels like a very minor hill, but for them, it's big. Saw a lot of rolling. Some boulders as sort of long-lasting elements as well. The seating area, it also functions as a play area. We also hosted some planting days during school time. Make sure teachers and students could be involved in directly planting themselves. We also hosted a stewardship day. Got watering cans, full sets of different sizes, full classroom sets, and did that actually during recess so that we're also modeling to yard duty teachers that you can take them out and you can do all these different things. And the next goal is to do something specifically with our after school. So just again, trying to build that school community around it. And I will just end with everybody always wonders about maintenance, of course. What is the long-term plan? For our climate, all trees are on irrigation. That is essential. We only get rain a few months of the year. So really, you have to have trees on irrigation. Hand watering is not feasible. Also, as I mentioned, it's like 54 trees. And funding right from the get-go, we made sure it included maintenance for the first 3 years when these are young trees still getting established. So we have an arborist on contract. We've been very fortunate to work with Ann Finkner of Davy Resources Group, who is incredibly dedicated to greening in schools. So even getting buy-in right there, I think she will be a long-term champion even past these 3 years. But she's doing some of the basic things: structural pruning, bi-monthly site visits, irrigation checks, tree tie adjustments, all these like little things that demand expertise and will really set these up for long-term success and ideally lower maintenance expenses in the long term because this work has really happened when they are young and pruning is less expensive than down the road. And then after this, the first 3 years, we'll turn it over to the district and they will be responsible for future maintenance. So with that, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Chamberlain and Nathaniel. And again, it has been a pleasure to work with both of you as partners on this and to really see your dedication to greening in the district. So thank you, everybody.
All right, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm Nathaniel, my colleague with me as well as Chamberlain, as you know. So here in Sacramento City Unified School District, we are kind of on the northern tip of the Central Valley, but also at the top of the Delta as well. So Ayesha was correct in both regards. We are the 11th largest school district in California. We serve roughly about 40,000 students across 75 schools, which covers about 1,000 acres of property to manage. We're actually one of the largest landowners in the city of Sacramento, and we serve a large population of high-need students like many other inner city school districts. Many of these students do not have the opportunity to explore the world outside of their neighborhoods and are often those neighborhoods are filled with concrete and asphalt, and they just don't have that opportunity to engage in nature. Next slide. To further outline some of the disparities within our district, here's a side-by-side comparison of two neighborhoods about 3 miles apart. The first is Land Park, which is a largely white neighborhood with much higher educational attainment, home ownership, income, life expectancy, and other. The Land Park neighborhood also has one of the largest city parks located within it, and it has infrastructure of well-resourced public amenities and schools. By comparison, South City Farms neighborhood is largely made up of minoritized communities, lower educational attainment, home ownership, income levels, and life expectancy, unfortunately. There is not a single community park in this neighborhood, and public infrastructure has been historically underfunded. One of the only two public schools in the neighborhood was also closed over a decade ago, with the other school receiving little to no capital since it was built in the mid-70s. This is a social justice issue at the highest, an issue that initially started during the Jim Crow era practices of mortgage lending, known as redlining, and it's still carried on today, although maybe largely unknown by decision makers. Next slide. So the district began realizing this and had to do something about it right away. In order to repair previous damage from such decisions, we created what, instead of continuing to add investments into those more affluent parts of town and not providing other parts of town with a equal or equitable level of capital investments, we decided to flip the traditional model of identifying where capital investments need to go. And rather, we started looking at how we can bring those other neighborhoods up that haven't had that same investment to create something that those neighborhoods have been without. So about 5 years ago, again, rather than looking at the age of the school and the enrollment levels of the school, which is the traditional methods, we started looking at neighborhood needs and student outcomes instead. To identify those projects, we came up with a map that's illustrated on your left with the neighborhoods with the highest level of need in the darker color. And from there, we were able to identify much of the schools that actually hadn't had a single capital dollar invested since they were built. So from there, we started to invest millions of dollars into those neighborhoods. Over the last 3 years, we've put about 5 billion, sorry, over the last 3 years, we've put about $500 million into those neighborhoods, and we're continuing that trajectory now. So we're really trying to bring those neighborhood schools up to the same level, if not beyond their counterparts. Unsurprisingly, when we take that same equity map and overlay a tree canopy index, we notice the same disparities with the lack of tree coverage. And so from there, we realized that we need to look at not only capital investments, but how can we start bringing resources into schools that may not be on that capital investment list quite yet, to bring in the forests, bring in the nature play, bring in that shade. And that is where Chamberlain comes in and her expertise in working with Green Schoolyards America and other friends and colleagues of ours that we've gotten to know for the Parkway project and others. And with that, I want to turn it over to Chamberlain to get back into the details.
Great, thanks so much, Nathaniel. So I'm going to provide y'all with some background on our schoolyards. So these are photos of just a very typical Sac City Unified Elementary School property, and I imagine the layout is very familiar to y'all. The majority of trees on campus are often found in the front for curb appeal and not in the areas where students are actually playing. Our schoolyards overwhelmingly consist of 3 zones. So they have an expansive blacktop, an often unshaded play structure, a grassy field, also without shade. And you can see a ground level photo of a play structure on the right. This is actually Parkway, and this is very typical of our district. So Green Schoolyard America created a GIS map for California detailing tree canopy on school campuses at the sub-parcel level, specifically the area of campus that children use during the school day. So they call this area the student zone. And green dot means there's tree coverage of about 30% or more, and red means 5% or less. So overall, our district has a student zone tree canopy coverage of 9%, so orange. This isn't great, but it is slightly better than the statewide average of 7%. However, similar to the equity maps Nathaniel was speaking to earlier, our tree canopy is not distributed equally across the district, even at the sub-parcel level. So this map provides us with baseline data so we can establish goals and intermediate targets for tree canopy in the student zones. And it also helps us target the schools with the least amount of tree coverage in those zones first. All right, so my program is sustainability, which in a nutshell is considering how our choices impact the health and well-being of our students. So I've spent a lot of time researching how our current schoolyard design impacts our students. And I've used this research to make a case study for green schoolyards to both our internal partners, like maintenance, and also our external partners, like design. This research probably isn't going to surprise anyone here, but I wanted to give you an idea of how I frame the issue. So in a nutshell, our schoolyards lack nature, and this negatively impacts our students' cognitive and mental well-being. There is an onslaught of research on how exposure to nature revives the brain. It increases attention span. It calms anxiety. And this is in all demographics and across all age ranges, regardless of whether they report they like nature or not. 2, we're dealing with an increasing extreme heat, right? And our schoolyards are baking. So they are carpeted in some of the hottest materials out there. That's asphalt and rubber, most without any shade. So my goal is to decrease asphalt use wherever possible, and then to shade our pour-in-place rubber as well. 3, in lower resource neighborhoods, our schoolyards are the main opportunity for physical and social activity. So many of these students are spending all day and into the evening there. 4, a lot of students are sedentary during recess, especially at schools with limited zones. Most schoolyards, like I said, only have those 3 zones, and there isn't enough variety for all of our students to find something they like to be physically active. So we need more zones beyond these 3, right? So our students who are seeking other types of play besides competitive, like collaborative and exploratory and imaginative, can find those too. And finally, the standard schoolyard design is found to, at least in this article and several others I found, increase aggressive behavior in some students, often boys or students that are perceived as boys by the researchers, while simultaneously causing boredom in others, often students perceived as girls. So there is that research to back it up. I've cited an article here, but I also have anecdotal evidence from our own schoolyards, right? So at recess recently, I was there we're doing a new build for that school. And so I was looking at their recess and I counted over 50 boys playing soccer, but I only counted 3 girls. And the majority of girls were just standing under these 2 large trees. It was very hot that day. And then when I was at 2 other schools, they had temporarily banned basketball and kickball because it was causing aggressive behavior both on the blacktop and then back in the classroom. So we know we have these very oversimplified schoolyards to the point that they aren't fully supporting our students' physical, mental, and cognitive development. But one real barrier to change is that this current schoolyard design has been baked into our culture, particularly around this idea of wide open sightlines, to the point that it's created a positive feedback loop where the design of the schoolyard is so simplified that it actually increases negative behavior in students, which lends us to double down on removing anything we perceive as causing those negative behaviors and so on. So like everything, there's a balance that needs to be found here. Schoolyards are much more than a place students need to be monitored, right? They should be viewed as imperative to building students' physical, social, emotional, and cognitive development, just like the classroom and just like our curriculum. In addition, another barrier is if you build it in regards to the Parkway Forest, they will come is not always an adequate adage, right? At least not the immediate. Change causes discomfort. My work also involves thinking about how to prepare our teachers and our site admins to feel comfortable taking their students outdoors, whether to use the nature play elements or to teach an outdoor lesson. All right, Nathaniel, on to you.
All right. So as you may realize, maintenance and the maintenance team is one of the largest obstacles in overcoming the desire to bring in and rethink play yards. So we have this mantra in our district that the maintenance team are the owners and they have to maintain the facility forever after. There is no way that we would be able to overcome them as an obstacle unless we brought them in with us and created the change together. And so this is probably, I think, one of the most critical components to our success thus far. We realized that the maintenance team had decades and decades of bad blood between them and the trees out there, the few trees that we had remaining. And so Chamberlain and I were very adamant about having multiple conversations, bringing them on site visits, figuring out how to speak their language, figuring out how to help them understand why it was important for us, why it was important for our students to have these types of changes on their play yards. It often meant self-deprecating humor where I would walk up to the maintenance manager's office and knock on the door and say, "Hello, it's the Lorax again. Just wanted to see if you want to talk about trees." Or it also meant, after hearing that they went out on a hike over the weekend, then bringing that back to, wow, it'd be great if our students had the opportunity to enjoy nature and enjoy trees the same way. Unfortunately, they don't yet, but we're going to work together to get there. So we were very intentional about listening to and walking with them to outline and understand exactly what their concerns and frustrations were, and then figuring out together how we can overcome some of those. Anything here that you can imagine, the maintenance costs, the lack of staffing available to take care of playgrounds, trees planted in the wrong places over time, creating cracks and extra work really brought up the concerns of maintenance. So how could we overcome that? One of the funniest things that Chamberlain and I still laugh about is that we had one of our maintenance leaders just really despise acorns, oak acorns, and how it could cause death and destruction. And so we kind of joke about it to ourselves, but that was a real thing. People were very concerned and scared of acorns. So just over time, having those conversations, little small conversations at a time, listening to them, not and interjecting, having really thick skin. Those conversations grew into bigger conversations, which grew into bigger conversations, which now we're at a point where the maintenance team comes to us and says, "Hey, I have an idea. I think this would be a great place for a tree grove at this high school. How could we get there? Here's some money. I even have some money for the installation of it." And so over the last 18 months, just ensuring that we have those really big ears and having those conversations and learning the lingo and the concerns of our maintenance team, they are now, in some respects, our biggest advocate. That doesn't mean that they still laugh at our expense. I still get called a hippie like once a week because of the efforts that we're trying to do. Chamberlain and I still shake our head from time to time, but we know that we're making that progress, and that's the important part. Next slide.
All right. So, one thing that has really helped us amplify this conversation around shifting that culture has been the pilot project. So the Parkway Schoolyard Forest in particular has been huge, and that's what you're looking at is the designs for that. And from design through construction, we actively involved our maintenance and landscaping team, acknowledging that their input was vital. So they would be the keepers of the forest once it was built. And we also included, like Ayesha was saying, students and staff at Parkway throughout this process in the hopes that buy-in would fuel engagement with the forest and also to ensure that what we were designing would actually meet their needs. So the site wanted the forest in close proximity to where the students played during recess, and we determined that a forest surrounding the play structure would be ideal, both for easy access to play and sightlines and also for eventual shading of the play structures as it grew. So what you're looking at again is the final design, and the forest will, eventually shade in and surround that play structure. So the teachers asked us to embed outdoor classroom elements in the forest, like picnic tables and stump seating. The students asked for nature play elements, like balance logs and boulders to climb on when we were doing the design process. And then a must-have for our maintenance team was a mow strip around the edge of the forest. So this allows for a clean mow edges between the forest and turf fields. It also reduced the amount of turf they had to mow by over 15,000 square feet. So that was a win-win for everyone. We also worked with maintenance, like Nathaniel was saying, to plant the right tree species in the right place. For example, they're worried about oaks next to the blacktop in the play structure because of acorns. So we placed them more towards the center and edge of the forest. And to sum it up, this is a text that Nathaniel got from one of our grounds maintenance leads. And we think it does a great job of kind of summing up how this pilot helped us build a better relationship with our maintenance around trees and green schoolyards going forward. So here are some photos of the schoolyard forest at Parkway. And we had a ton of wins, as I was just talking about for this project, right? So the project immediately increased nature exposures for these students. One teacher said her students love to walk through the forest and have expressed that it helps calm them. It also is multi-zoned. So many of our students who use this area during recess are doing imaginary play, while others are balancing on the logs or stump, and others are using it just as a moment to reflect. And again, it will eventually shade the play structure and protect from our really intense heat during the summer, spring, and fall. And it wasn't overly expensive and did not go through DSA or the Division of State Architects, which is an enormous cost saver. So this forest cost about $200,000 in the construction phase. That doesn't include design. But that's tiny compared to the benefits that it brings. It also helped us build a deeper relationship with our maintenance team, as I said. But as with all projects, there has been challenges, right? The forest canopy will eventually close and shade. The shade and the droppings from the trees will form kind of a natural weed barrier and mulch is our hope. But for now, we are dealing with some weeds. Most of them we're just letting grow. And then have some of the students tend to them. We do have some classes that are interested in weeding. But we recently discovered Bermuda grass. So if you've ever dealt with it, you know it's kind of impossible to stop. So that is a challenge. It's also took a lot of effort to get the school to actually allow students into the forest during recess. They were both scared that their students would try to harm the trees, but just also worried about kind of the extended play area and the changed sightline. And finally, only some of the teachers actually use it for outdoor learning right now or have their students actually water or weed or do litter removal. So hopefully this number will grow. It's just all part of that bigger culture shift, right? It takes time. All right, Nathaniel.
Yeah. So I think now that we've had some of this learning opportunity, with the Parkway Forests and now a few others as well, it's really important to embed what we've learned into our standard operating procedures. And so one of those ways to do that is to make sure that everything that we want to see, everything that we've learned from we want to do moving forward, we put it into our construction standards and specifications, which is a very formal document that we provide all of our designers that they must follow for any of our projects. And just to point out a few, so planting trees and grows whenever possible, it's better for the trees and for the students. It provides an excellent viewing perspective from the classroom windows as well. Planting 15-gallon trees or bigger. Those 5-gallon trees just do not survive around the wear and tear of students. Irrigating new trees is absolute necessity. And creating multi-use spaces when planting trees, don't just settle on shade, but also make sure it's accessible and there's outdoor learning and nature play opportunities. So we have started to roll these standards and specifications out to our designers for this next round of large school construction projects. And so we are starting to get to know a lot of the designers and the sub-designers for landscape much more closely as they come back and ask questions. And we're able to then further start refining those educational specifications moving forward. So this is a really exciting time in our policy realm of the work that we're doing. Now we have a lot of the folks in our department behind us and helping us out, and now we're creating those documents forever after. Next. One of the more critical components that we worked on before the educational specifications was updating our tree planting list. So we have had an approved tree planting list for many years now, and it listed out anything you can or cannot plant. But we realized that we needed to, with our conversations with the maintenance team, we need to refine that and make it tighter. And so we went through all the names and species of trees and made sure that they're very specific and hardy for our area. But we also started outlining the type of tree and where they may or may not be planted on our site as well, just to give that more refinement and guidance. So oftentimes we have well-intentioned parent-teacher groups wanting to come in and plant a memorial tree or plant a couple trees in the playground. And those we found were often the trees that were creating the most headache for maintenance. This has been able to provide a little bit more direction, a little bit more conversation with those parent groups or anyone else wanting to plant trees on our property. Another component that we included in the tree planting list and protocol is that every single tree must be irrigated. Previously, it sounds obvious, but previously trees were being planted with the expectation that a custodian or a lead teacher would go out and water that tree on occasion, and then that teacher or custodian moves on and things change, and some of those trees we had planted 7 years ago haven't grown at all. And so this tree planting list is really kind of the backbone for a lot of our design work, a lot of that engagement that we did with our maintenance team.
All right, so I'm going to speed through these because I think we're actually pretty short on time. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this pilot project has led to more projects, right? So you're looking at 2 additional projects. We're about to go to construction at 2 more schools for Schoolyard Forest. It followed, it created the forest around the play structure. We have that mow strip. We like it nice and curved. It just gives a more natural appeal. We have those outdoor learning elements. And again, we have the nature play for our students. Also, one change is that we're going to try decomposed granite. We're in the outdoor learning area. We're hoping that it'll help teachers feel more comfortable there. I think they are more familiar with walking on DG than on bark and mulch. We're also almost in the construction phase for 3 new early learning messy play areas. It's a grant that we got through Sac State. And so this combines a lot of those elements, right? We have all of that nature play again. We have kind of an outdoor amphitheater. We have gardens, and this just creates that multi-zoned use that I'm talking about. Students can use that amphitheater for presentations, but they can also use it for imaginative play, right? Theater, that sort of thing. And then we were also able to add a hand water pump and kind of this thing called a sluiceway, which we really wanted in the Parkway Forest, but we weren't able to do. So goals and guidelines for getting to green over time. So this is the way we've kind of embedded it into our future construction projects, right? So we do these things called campus renewals where we're painting, we're kind of updating the asphalt, adding a play structure here and there. But now I'm saying, hey, can we add a schoolyard forest? Can we, take out some asphalt and add kind of some nature play and forested area in the middle for shade? Can we add some outdoor learning in the corridors between the school sites? For our new build. So we just completed 3 complete teardowns and rebuilds, and we learned a lot from that. And we're in the design phase for 2 new ones, elementary schools. And so some of the things so this was the very original schematic that Nathaniel and I got, and we, noticed that, okay, it still had those basic 3 zones, the soccer fields, and the blacktop and a play structure. And so we said, how can we change this? We met with the design team. We gave them a presentation. Oh, and one other thing was that there were these 6 kind of beautiful, mature, healthy trees in the southwest corner that was going to be turned into a field that we really wanted to save. So they heard us, and kind of this is the design that they came up with, right? So this is a more advanced rendering. So we broke up the blacktop. We have a much smaller blacktop than we would have had. And we have a lot more trees in that student zone. We have very diverse zoned play structures, right? It's going to be much different than just the normal tower surrounded by blacktop. We're able to preserve, at least so far, those 6 trees, and they added nature play elements to invite students into that forest. So that has all been really exciting. And then we just added other zones, right? Outdoor learning and gardens. And then Nathaniel, want to wrap it up?
Yeah, and so I would say that our call to action for you all is to have conversations with all the diverse stakeholders within the district, and then embed everything and all the progress you're making in any policy level document as possible. So I belabored the conversations we had with the maintenance department. That is one definite stakeholder. One area that Chamberlain and I did not go into much in this presentation, but Ayesha did a great job of illustrating, was the opportunity you have and you need to take with site teachers and staff as well to make sure that they understand how to utilize the new space that is being provided to them. So then they are able to continue to maintain it, utilize it in a way that's going to be most beneficial for their students. In addition to that, obviously talking about making sure that any kind of documents or outward facing components for the community, whether it's a tree planting list or whether it is standards and specifications for construction, are really critical. Creating standard operating procedures based on those as well. Getting in front of your board as much as you can, or any of those higher level individuals within your district, and just even, like I said, calling yourself the Lorax, or just small little ways to get into those conversations and push that envelope. Those conversations get bigger and bigger. And that is all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chamberlain and Nathaniel and Aisha. I feel like there's just so much benefits and value to kind of seeing and hearing behind the scenes of your work. So thank you for sharing this pilot work, and I'm so glad that it's like inspired just a culture shift and those plants that you showed with so many trees like that students can access during the day. That was so inspiring. So thank you again. I know you're getting a lot of love in terms of the reactions from your presentation. I also just want to elevate a few questions. We're running a little low on time, but we have some time for some questions. So, one question was when you were speaking about the groves, Karen Bishop asked, how would you modify these design standards to guide a school team that would like to make a mini grove on their own? Any responses?
Go ahead, Chamberlain.
So this is the question. Let me just make sure I understand is how would we get kind of student groups to make a mini grove on their own?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's like a school green team.
Yeah. Honestly, I know Nathaniel talked about irrigation and watering, and that is always going to be the biggest barrier for us because we're just, we have kind of the rainy season and then we have a very dry season, and so I think it's around really establishing that culture of watering with the students. So we have Sac Tree Foundation. We can always go to them and say, hey, we need 5 15-gallon trees, and they actually provide it for free. It's a partnership that they have with our local utility company. And I don't know if you have one of those, but I would say just making sure that once you get those trees and the students plant it, and obviously there's ownership around it, but that there's really just a guaranteed plan on how those trees are going to get watered. I just recently went to a site that, was really enthusiastic about planting trees, planted trees, didn't really have a watering plan. And it's been 2 years and that tree really hasn't grown. It survived somehow, but it hasn't grown since we planted it. So water's essential. So I would say just really thinking about that. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to it.
I would say also just getting buy-in from the facilities folks on your site or at your district. I'm not sure how you're organized as well is really important. So you can start building those bridges. Another component saying that I stole from Ayesha is that one of the things that we always say now is that we let leaf litter lie. And so it's less work on the maintenance staff. We make sure that it's the right tree in the right location. So I think all of those things would be really critical.
Nathaniel, you need to say that louder for the people in the back. Let leaf litter lie. It's less work on your maintenance team. It's such a shift in mentality, right, of what the training that district maintenance teams often receive. And so I know many school districts that we work with, we are also working to get them to adopt that practice. Like it's okay. Go ahead, Aisha.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add to that, as along with Nathaniel and Chamberlain getting that message to the district, we felt it was important to get that message to everybody on at the school, so they're not calling in work orders and complaints, right? So the very first gathering we had after the forest was planted, kind of kept pushing the principal for like, I need to be at an all staff meeting, not just a voluntary attendance. And that was a big point I belabored and showed them examples of not only how it looked beautiful, but it was going to be a whole ecosystem and it was going to provide all these science learning opportunities and nature play opportunities and art possibilities. And to just kind of already get that into their head, because already one at the beginning, before anything was planted, a teacher had been like, so who's going to clear up the leaves? So already it was like, okay, this has to be addressed, and then I was like, oh, of course it has, even if somebody doesn't speak up, you never know. They're just used to the neat look. And it's everybody has sort of seemed to embrace it. And I've put up some signage on leaf litter that Xerces has wonderful signage that shows the little mini ecosystem that is out there. I think it's called Healthy Yards, the website. I've got it in our Green Schoolyards resources, that gives a visual to kids and teachers of like, hey, if there's leaf litters, there's bugs, there's therefore there's birds. So I put that up, Chamberlain, on planting day on the chain link fence. So yeah, just trying to come at it in all ways, right?
So important. Thank you, Aisha, for sharing. There's a question in here around, are your school campuses open to the public during non-school hours? Is that a practice you all have at Sac City?
We do not have a formal policy either way. We typically leave it up to the principal and the site. A lot of our schools are open to the public. A lot of these new schools that we're redesigning, like the one that Chamberlain was just talking about, have multiple layers of fencing and are designed to be open to the neighborhood as well. So we're kind of in this transition time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Um, think we have time for like maybe one more question. Lauren, is there anything that's coming up? I know there's this comment by Karen that asked, it's a comment, and then the ultimate question is, have you had any recent conversations or focus groups regarding teacher needs? It was in the context of sometimes science teachers, need work surfaces, and that becomes a higher priority than seating. So just curious if you all, how, if at all, you all have engaged, kind of teacher needs and balancing that with some of these improvements.
I can jump in on one piece and then maybe you have something for some of your other sites. So for Parkway, we sent out a survey to all the teachers and actually at our other pilot as well. And some of the questions we asked were kind of like sort of address some of this, like, do you want small group learning areas? Do you want large group areas? And so, we found that people did want a mix of both. And also by hosting these community open houses, getting to talk to them and discovering, oh, at Parkway, for example, their music is really important. And suddenly they're like, oh, would we be able to have a large enough space where a group could do that? They didn't ask explicitly for an amphitheater. And again, we were keeping costs as low as possible, but we have that hill. It can still be open spaces for larger groups, more than just one classroom. So those are some of the ways we came at it. And again, the survey was because not everybody could come to the open houses, which were after the end of the school day. So trying to reach people in multiple ways.
That's great. We are at time, and I definitely want to honor folks' time. I can't thank Chamberlain, Nathaniel, and Aisha enough for such an amazing and inspiring presentation. For those of you that have asked questions in the chat, we will do our best to address those questions as follow-up and see what resources that the Sacramento City Unified School District would be willing to share with you all, and we'll share those in a subsequent follow-up email. And just a couple of reminders to visit our events page for all of our ongoing online series. The next lecture series will be happening on February 12th, and the next community of practice will happen on February 19th. So thank you again so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your month and the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.